Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to episode 81 of the Phoenix Report. I am Jack Connor, and man, it has been a long time since I've done one of these. I was checking out I was checking out my history, I should say. The last time I did one of these one-on-one interviews was back in August of 2021, and by the time this comes out, it will be January of 2022. As I record this, it's December 30th, so we're just sort of at the cusp of the new year, but hopefully, hopefully I can do this a little bit more because honestly, I've missed doing my podcast quite a bit, and just how things go. Life gets in the way, and it's between my job and the band and my family. These things happen sometimes. But I'm glad to be doing this again, and I thank everyone for listening. When I started this podcast, I wanted to give a spotlight not only just to my own career, but also people I've met along the way. And whether they're people in other bands or people in the music industry or in the entertainment space, or just people I happen to have met throughout my life who I find interesting. And this guy is definitely no different. I met this gentleman several years ago. Ironically through social media. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't typically get in the habit of making friends who I don't know in real life through social media. But this was a guy who I found through a Mark Tremonti fan group on Facebook. I'm a big fan of Mark Tremonti's bands, Creed and Alter Bridge and so on and so forth. So it was a Mark Tremonti fan group. I believe Fret 13 was the name of it because that was his guitar company. But this guy I found in there, and I thought, like, this, I don't know what it was initially that got us in contact with each other, but we both liked a lot of the same bands. We both liked wrestling. We had a lot of similar tastes, and so we just kind of became good friends, through that. And I've kept in touch with what he's done over the years, and this guy is one of the most dedicated fans of local music that I have ever met. This guy goes out of his way to, support almost all kinds of artists at several different levels, whether they're national touring, whether they're, big bands, or whether they're, small bands like the one I'm in, or the ones I've been in over the years, I should say. But, and this guy is really a unique character. And what I mean by that is that, he'll typically be at these shows and he will design special costumes and like face paint and makeup that will like pay tribute to the band that he's going to see. And a lot of it is wrestling inspired as well, but also like this guy is known in the Los Angeles area as like being one of the biggest like super fans of rock music of all various levels. And he's managed to parlay this into working at the legendary Whisky A Go-Go on the Sunset Strip, which is just a legendary rock club made famous by the Doors in the 1960s, and of course also made famous during the 80s, during the height of the Sunset Strip era, and is still a very, very prestigious venue in rock and roll. So it's pretty wild to see this guy go from being a super fan to being a promoter. And this guy has a really interesting story, and they call him Warrior Dave because a lot of his stuff is inspired by the Ultimate Warrior. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce this guy. Please welcome to the Phoenix Report, a guy I've known for many years, one of the most dedicated fans I've ever met, and it's cool to see him like really putting that to use as a promoter. Please welcome Warrior Dave.
What's up, y'all? Whoop, whoop.
Not much, man. Not much, man. This is something that you and I had talked about for a while. I remember years ago when I started this podcast, you had reached out to me as like, hey, man, I think I might want to do that one of these days. And, how did you do it? Like, how did you get involved? And you would like ask me for advice on that. And I don't know if that's something you're still interested in, but I always appreciated you kind of coming to me and, picking my brain about that sort of thing and asking me advice, asking me some advice on it. It definitely made me feel like I was doing something right. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like, I've been like listening to some of your stuff and like seeing what you do, and for other friends and people in the communities, and all sorts, all from all walks of life. And it just happened to catch my attention. Like, you know what? Maybe I want to do that one of these days. It's just a matter of just finding the time to be able to do, that all at once. So, but as a matter of fact, I actually bought the blue microphone,
Mm-hmm.
the USB mic that you recommended to me like a while back. I
Yeah,
just haven't
yeah.
put it to the test yet. So,
Gotcha.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I still use one right now, the blue Snowball USB mic. It's not too bad. It's not that expensive, and so far it works pretty well. Hopefully it's still working now. Hopefully I still sound all right. But yeah, no, like I said, man, it's funny how technology has made our world so much smaller, and you and I would have never met, had it not been for, these fan communities on Facebook. Because you're based in Southern California, I'm in Orlando, Florida, two completely different coasts, and yet here we are talking to each other and kind of struck up a friendship, even though we've never actually hung out in person.
Yeah, it's interesting how life works that way. Because I know, like, I definitely know people in my circle that would never, ever meet with, like, become friends on Facebook with anybody that they've never met in real life,
Hmm.
usually. So it's like, I feel like for me, it's like one of those rare cases where it's like, because I think for me, because I have a good judge of character. So like when I see how, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the wording in their comments when people
Hmm.
respond to stuff, or just the vibe I get from getting responses when I'm responding to them. That
Sure.
just that's just like, this guy seems cool, like he he or she understands a lot of the same stuff that I understand, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it just kind of goes from there. And then they either send me a friend request or I'll send them a friend request.
Hmm.
I think in this case, I think I was the one that sent you a friend request, if I'm not mistaken.
It might have been. I mean, it's been so long, I don't even remember the details. But I mean, like you said, I'm not typically the type of person who gets into the habit of, sort of like befriending,
Yeah.
strangers more or less
And that
on.
was way before I even knew anybody. Like
Yeah,
the amount of people I know now is not nearly close to what it was then. You
yeah,
know, it's like then I didn't really know too many people, so I was just kind of, I guess that was like my own way of networking. I was barely, I think, because I want to say it was like either 2012 or 2013 when we became Facebook
it
friends.
might have been.
I think it might have been around that time period, because I think during the first part, I had just barely, that was barely like I was barely 2 or 3 years into Facebook.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I didn't really, the whole social media aspect was still fresh.
sure.
It's nothing like how it is today. It was still kind of growing. I mean, it
Hmm.
still is, but like compare it then to now, it's very different. The usage of social media these days,
Gotcha.
so
Yeah. Well, I do want to get into a little bit about your backstory because, from what I understand, you're from New York originally, but you've lived in Southern California for a long time. I think how old were you when you and your family moved out west?
I was 12 years old. So I've been here for 22 years. I'm 35 right now. I just turned 35 a few weeks ago. So, um, my mom moved here way before I did. She moved here in the late 80s.
Okay.
So I didn't move out here till like 99. So like literally a couple months before the millennium 2000.
Sure,
So
sure. Yeah, I mean that was right around the time because I was around 15 when I moved from Pennsylvania to Florida. So it's funny when you move to a different part of the country at that particular age when you're still kind of figuring out who you are. It's definitely an interesting experience. But like you've spent most of your life at this point out there. So I guess do you consider yourself a Californian?
I'm pretty much a native at this point,
Hmm.
like I know that's like the number one question everybody asks about like, oh, where you're from, because almost nobody in California is from California.
Right,
If
right.
you've anybody who's originally born and raised in LA or California in general, it's very rare.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, California and LA in particular has always been really fascinating to me because I've never been out there, but obviously, there's so much, so much history and so much, about that area that's unique to that particular part of the country that, is really interesting. And hopefully I'll get to go one of these days.
Yeah, you should like one day, like definitely it's definitely something to get off the bucket list at least once.
Sure.
It's definitely, I will say it's not for everybody,
Hmm.
but it's, life is what I believe life is what you make of it. So, if you're the type of person that's like, into entertainment and film and music and art, any of that sort of thing, LA is definitely for you. But if you're the type of person that's more kind of like a family person, with kids and
Hmm.
married and want to buy a house and you
Right.
know like all that stuff, like then California may not necessarily be the place for you. So
Gotcha.
it just
Gotcha.
depends on everybody's situation and financial situation and life, where they are in life and everything. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Of course. So, so tell me a little bit about your background, being a fan of music. Obviously, music is a very important part of your life. How, what sort of is your history with it as far as like how it's sort of helped shape you as a person? Give me some background as far as what you're a fan of, why you're a fan of these things, if you don't mind.
no, not at all. Well, I think it mainly kind of just I didn't get into it until I moved to California, more so. Even though I think throughout childhood I was always surrounded by it to some extent. Like
Hmm.
my grandparents, may they rest in peace,
Hmm.
was always they were always listening to like a lot of Spanish music, even
Hmm.
though I don't personally listen to well, I do listen to some of it. I just don't. My thing is, I don't understand the language.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so like, but it's still something that like still stems within that. I kind of like when I look back at that, and then today it kind of holds a special place now.
Yeah, of course.
Now that they're no longer with us,
Yeah.
but at the time, like I was like, they were listening to Spanish music. My grandparents were really into that, and my uncle was like the metalhead in the family. So
Hmm.
like he was the one that was listening to the Maidens and Metallicas and the Sabbaths and the Wars and the Tools. Like he was listening to all sorts of different stuff that I've never even heard of before at the time. I mean,
Sure.
he schooled me on a lot of stuff, and then I think eventually, and then I heard then my mom was more of like the rap, R&B, hip hop kind of gal. So
Hmm.
like a lot of the stuff she was listening to, even though at the time when I was a kid, I hated it,
Yeah.
like at one point I heard it all the time and she would never play any other genre other than
No.
that. So it was like one of those things where I'm just like, I need to like kind of expand my horizons here or something.
Sure.
So I think so on top of that, like I think how it all stemmed into it was I think just from like those factors, and then me being around playing video games, so hearing video game music you know is
Yeah.
also a contributing factor, like whether it's Tetris, whether it's just like instrumental stuff that I hear like out of nowhere that I'm just like, but I didn't really get really into it, I think, until I became a wrestling fan because of my grandfather. Like I started watching, WCW, WWE,
Okay,
all that.
was your grandfather a wrestling fan?
Yeah, he was.
Nice.
He was the one that got me hooked on it. So I definitely, I definitely have him to thank for that.
Gotcha. Well, I
In
mean,
a
obviously, your nickname Warrior Dave is inspired by the Ultimate Warrior. I
yeah,
know Jeff Hardy is a big influence of yours as well.
yeah, just shortly after he passed, I think was when I kind of, because which we would get to that because like there's a story behind the Warrior Dave name that leads to that
Oh,
actually.
okay,
Not
okay, yeah, yeah. We could
so
definitely get to that. I don't want to bury the lead, but yeah, but you and your grandfather, you guys watch wrestling together, and so you probably gravitated towards some of the themes, some of the songs that you probably heard on those shows, and
yeah,
which is really cool because I mean, look, even to this day, like a lot of wrestling shows are really good vehicles for a lot of like rock bands, especially the last couple of years. NXT in particular was WWE NXT, but like that was because of that I heard about bands like Code Orange and Poppy and stuff like that I've never hear anywhere, and like you don't really see a lot of a lot of these bands get like spots on TV on network or cable TV, so it can be a good vehicle for a lot of artists.
I agree. Yeah, like a lot of my that's where a lot of my inspiration for listening to rock and metal came from. A lot of the times was listening to a lot of the wrestlers theme
Hmm.
song because a lot of it is very rock oriented. And
Yeah.
so when you hear these tunages, you're just like, you know, I end up getting like whatever compilations I can get,
Hmm.
that had certain theme songs of said wrestlers and etc. And I think that's what really kind of became the game changer for me was like, especially hearing, do you remember the WWF Forcible Entry soundtrack?
I was just going to ask you about that. That was a big one back in 2002 when it came out. Yeah, I still have a copy of mine, and yeah, that was a great compilation of like really good like rock bands at the time who were like there were some original tunes, but a lot of them were like reworked versions of existing wrestling themes, and some that actually became the wrestling themes, like like the band Breaking Point did a song for Rob Van Dam, and Rob Van Dam just ended up using that for the rest of his WWE run, for example. Yeah, I think
Yeah, you know what's crazy? Actually, there's a cool story about the Breaking Point. That's actually I actually because I'm friends with Justin Reimer on Facebook, the guitar player.
no kidding. Oh,
Like,
okay.
yeah, so like I actually, because I actually met Rob Van Dam in person earlier this year, like back in
Nice.
March. So that was a good goal for 2021.
Very cool.
uh, so I was messaging Justin, letting him know. I was like, hey, like, you know, just to give you the heads up, I'm meeting Rob Van Dam. And he's like, oh, no way. Tell him I said hi,
Oh, nice.
and then after when I went to the meet and greet, he actually, I was asking him like, um, what his experience was like doing the music video they did for the One of the Kind theme song
Oh, yeah.
that was for, because they did a music video for it.
That's
And
right.
he because Justin was saying that he was super funny, and he was super funny
Oh,
and
yeah.
crazy, during the shoots. And I was asking RBD about it, and he totally remembers like having a good time doing that shoot and everything.
Nice.
And what's also cool about that guy, I'm gonna say, is the fact that I think we got there. I think I think it started around like 4-ish, and then like he was supposed to only be there until like 5:30, and he ended up being there till like, I don't know, I'm guessing like around 7-ish. That's how much that guy cares about his fans.
Very
The fact that
cool.
he stood longer than he was actually supposed to.
That's awesome. I love hearing stuff like that.
Yeah. No, he really does love and care about his fans, I can tell.
That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, to your point, there were so many good songs, and a lot of good bands that were on that record, and I think they did it like a hip hop compilation as well, like a year later, WWF
Yeah.
Aggression as well. So
Yeah,
by
I
that,
discovered a lot of my favorite bands because of the company. Saliva, Disturbed,
yeah,
Limp Bizkit, you
hmm
know? Like, because, Saliva has done a crazy ton of theme songs for them,
yeah,
paper
they
and wrestlers alike.
absolutely, absolutely. They've had their songs featured on pay-per-views, and they've done wrestler themes as well, and yeah, I mean a lot of those bands got a lot of airtime and a lot of airtime on WWE programming. So that was a
Yeah.
really special time, I think, for like if you're a fan of that sort of music and a fan of wrestling, to have that all come together. It was a pretty unique period in time. And WWE still has a lot of like a lot of music on there, but now they've kind of they've kind of gotten away from the rock stuff, I think.
A little bit. I mean, they'll once in a while, like they'll switch back and forth with it. Like they
Hmm.
still they still showcase AC/DC's I think it's Are You Ready? That's
Yeah,
on the
well, yeah,
down.
Vince McMahon is a huge AC/DC fan, so I'm sure that was a Vince decision.
That makes sense. I actually didn't even know that. So that's a
Yeah,
fun
I
fact.
think AC/DC is like his favorite band. So there you go.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I know that Dirty Honey had a theme song at one point. I don't know if you've heard of that band.
I've heard of Dirty Honey. Yeah, they're really good.
They just did. I saw that they did. I don't remember what the song was called, but it was the theme song for Extreme Rules, like
Okay.
2 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's funny how it's funny how those two worlds kind of go together really easily. And I was having like one of my earlier guests was Montezi, who's a really great rapper who lives in St. Petersburg, Florida, about 2 hours from me, and really great guy. And he does the theme song for Sammy Guevara in AEW.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, he and I were talking about that, and just especially him being a hip hop guy, me being a rock guy, but like wrestling is kind of where we came together and struck up a friendship, and like just talking about each other's genres and how it combines into that love of wrestling is it's a pretty cool thing. And
There's a wrestler at AEW. I don't remember his name. I think it's Brandon something.
maybe
I think
Brandon
it's Brandon
Cutler.
Cutler. Brandon Cutler, is it?
Hmm.
Yeah. So, I don't think he still has the theme song anymore, but if you're familiar with who Jason Charles Miller is, for anybody listening, um, he used to be the singer for the band Godhead, and
Okay.
so he did he does his solo stuff is like country oriented, but like he actually did a song that he wrote for Brandon to use on AEW. Like
Okay.
they collaborated together for the song. I don't remember what it's called, but he has a vivid memory of this stuff too when I actually talked to him about that. Because the way I knew about it is because I saw his post about that. Because I'm kind of off and on with AEW. I only watch highlights usually. So
Hmm.
like I happened to hear about that, and I had asked him like, how was it? How was that working with him? And he was saying it was cool. He was talking about how cool it was, and he once in a while watches the product, and then he kind of was like whatever about him using a different theme because I guess he turned heel or something.
Hmm.
So you know how like when a face turns heel
Hmm.
or when a heel turns face, they
Yeah, they
change their
might switch up
themes.
the music. Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's funny. a buddy of mine is in a band called A Light Divided. They're a Florida band, and they do the theme song for a wrestler named Layla Hirsch, who's in AEW.
Oh, I've heard of
Yeah.
And I know Light Divided actually. I actually saw them on when they were touring a couple of years ago with Lydia Can't Breathe, who is also from Florida.
Oh yeah.
Represent.
Well, those well, of course, Lydia Can't Breathe. Those guys are very, very close friends of mine. So they I know them very, very well. And Scotty from A Light Divided, I know that he tours around quite a bit. I should say A Light Divided tours around quite a bit. And yeah, my buddy Scott is their guitar player. So it's it's funny how that comes together. And those guys have headed out west, out your way. But yeah, so I guess getting back to to you specifically, you obviously wrestling was sort of your gateway in. Who became some of your favorite bands out of that, especially as you're growing up and kind of discovering what you like, what you don't like, who have been like consistently some of your favorites?
Of the theme songs, or just the bands that played the theme songs?
Just bands in general, because obviously you're known for being such a huge music fan. Who would you say are like it would be at like the top of your list as far as bands that you're a fan of?
Creed has been pretty consistent. Alter Bridge, even though they didn't do too many themes, they only did like 3, I think. So they didn't really do much. I'm trying to figure out why they're not doing anymore, but that's okay.
I mean, they've gotten a lot of mileage out of Edge's theme, so
that's true. But they stopped after AB3. Well, yeah, they stopped after AB3 because they had a Ghost of the Days Gone By as part of like. They used that as part of a theme in Edge's DVD.
They did
about his career. So that was the last time they had anything Alter Bridge oriented in WWE programming.
Gotcha. But I mean, not even necessarily with the wrestling connection, but who do you say are just some of your favorite bands in general?
Favorite bands in general?
Yeah.
Like national or local?
Any who's like
okay,
yeah. Well, let's start with like famous bands that people would know, I should say.
Yeah, well, easy peasy. So definitely Creed and Alter Bridge being those favorite bands. Obviously, anything Mark Tremonti related is gold to me. So they're always going to be a favorite. For the sake of being biased. Smile Empty Soul's up there. Boyette's Car. Let's see. Yeah, these are bands I've been following for years that I've never it's always been consistent. It's never stopped. Gotcha. So, another band I also follow, 12 Stones, I still keep track of. They're also been a big favorite of mine from back in the early 2000s era. Mm-hmm. I still listen to like Taproot and like Trust Company, if anybody remembers them.
I remember Trust Company. I saw them in concert one time.
Super underrated. I feel like they should have been way bigger than they were.
They just kind of had their one album and single, and like that was it, as far as I remember. Gotcha. Well, I mean, I only remember the one, but yeah, I mean, that's how it goes sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah, they had a couple of hits. They had like 2 hits that was like known from like the first album, and then like after their sophomore album was like kind of where they kind of sort of dropped. But I heard the story actually of what really happened with that. So, because they were signed to Geffen, if I'm not mistaken, and I guess from what I've heard in an interview that Jason the drummer did, I guess like they were really unhappy with the record because because he said that it was very rushed, that the
band was unhappy with the record, or the label was?
Yeah.
Or? the band was. Okay.
The band was, because
Okay.
because compared to the first record they took a lot more time with than the second record. They were totally rushed on the second record. And he said that I guess it was like for like the recording process was only 6 months, whereas the
Hmm.
first album was like a year or 2 years.
Oh
You
wow.
know,
Okay.
so they just didn't. I don't know. I guess they just didn't like it. It was so they were so unhappy with it to the point where they didn't even play any songs off of the record live.
Okay.
Like after they like did their little return from hiatus,
Yeah,
you know.
that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, definitely. But back to your question, yeah, they're up there being my favorites. And um there's another band I'm trying to remember that I like. I still like, here and there keep tabs on.
Hmm.
I think it was, Dark New Day, even though they're not
Yeah.
doing, but I love
Hmm.
Seven Dust. Seven Dust is a big one.
Yeah. I just saw them last night, actually.
I know, I saw your
Hmm.
stories, Brian and everything. I was like, this is cool. I'm like, hell yeah, reunion.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Me and Brian had a good time at that one. And yeah, obviously, that I worked. Yeah, I worked very closely with Brett Hessler many years ago. So Dark New Day, that's excellent choice.
Yeah. I think, you know what, it's probably gonna be a sacrilegious thing for me to say, but like, and probably a lot of people are probably gonna hate me for saying this.
Oh, okay. Get
I've
ready for a
always
hot
loved,
take. Okay.
right? I've always loved. I don't know what it is. I think it's just the vibe of the music. I think I just love Dark New Day's music a bit more than Seven Dust.
Okay. All right.
And it's not to say I don't like Seven Dust. I love Seven Dust. It's just something about his voice and just the uniqueness of like all these different guys that have so many different backgrounds in like all the different bands that they play. Because
Yeah.
like Will and Troy play with Evanescence,
Well, yeah. I mean,
and
obviously Clint was in that band, so you got that
both
connection right there.
others, both Clint and Corey.
Yeah, both Lowry brothers. So there you go.
So yeah, it was just something with that, and I just I just happened to, I think at the time when the first record was released, I had to happen to catch myself listening to that record more than other records I was listening to of Seven Dust. And
Yeah.
so, because Seven Dust sometimes can be an acquired taste depending on the record, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, but as far as Seven Dust is concerned, like, my favorites from them are always going to be, like, Animosity and Seasons and
Hmm.
Home. Those are always going to be my favorite records from those guys. But I
Gotcha.
can't, like, say completely just because it's like they're, without Seven Dust, there wouldn't be any of the other projects. There wouldn't
Of
be a Dark
course.
New Day. There wouldn't be a Projected. There
Of
wouldn't be a,
course.
you know. So
Yeah.
you gotta appreciate the original band, just like with Creed and Alter Bridge.
Of
You can't
course. Absolutely.
without Creed it can be an Alter Bridge. So there you
Yeah.
go.
No,
And we've had
totally.
our conversations about that.
Oh, you and I have talked about that many, many times. But so as far as you going to local shows, I know, I imagine you had probably been doing that for a while, especially when you were moving out west. When it comes to local bands or local music, do you actively seek out that sort of thing, or like was it a situation where you just went to these clubs every week, or like regularly, and that's how you just got into the habit of going to all these shows?
That's a good question. I think it was just more like I was just more into. I think at first because I didn't start going to shows until I was a late bloomer in the concert going world. I
Okay.
didn't start going to shows until I was like 20, and it was like 2000 back in 2007. So I was kind of like a late bloomer in that world. So, I was barely all I knew was just the headliners, like the main acts. That's it. Like any casual music fan would. So I didn't start, I think, fast forward to, I think, I want to say 2012 or 2013. I didn't start fully getting into local music until like maybe 2014. Like, I think it's when I started seeing, certain opening local bands that just happened to be playing on the same times at I think during the days I was seeing a national act I liked, whether it be an Alien Ant Farm or or whoever. It doesn't matter who the headliners are, but
right.
but just like, the times that they happen to be playing, I happen to be checking out the local bands, because I'm one of those people that actually comes at the start of when doors open to the time that the show ends. Like, I stick from start to finish, so, and then I guess I don't remember who became the first really to like really expand, supporting local music. I think it was just more like, I just happened to see, like, I think the first, like, for starters, like, for instance, there was a band I know, I think, which I found out about in 2012, called Fight the War, and then another band called Fracture, which I also discovered the same year. But I think it was through, like, when they were opening for Spine Shank in that same year. You remember Spine Shank?
A little bit, yeah. I think I might have seen them, but, or no, I'm mixing them up with another band. But yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
Like, you've heard of Static X, right?
Yes, I've heard of Static X.
So stylistically, it's a little similar.
Okay.
Its style, and it came out. They're from that same era. It's all like new metal, industrial kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think Fight the War happened to be opening for them, and I think I heard them, and then I liked what I heard. They were passing out like these, like, burnt versions of CDs, back when those were still popular.
Oh yeah.
So they were handing those out, and I was listening to that, and then, like, they were just, I don't know what it was that driven me to it. I think it just happened to happen organically and naturally, that, like, it made me realize from going to certain shows that I went to at that time that, and especially after seeing a couple of other local bands called, like, Dirty Machine and the Mendenhall Experiment. I think after I started seeing those bands was when I was like, you know what? I feel like there's, like, a lot of bands in our scene that have potential that I don't understand. Like, they can be good, but it's like, eventually, like, it's like one of those things, like, I realize, like, no band starts off perfect. Sure. So it made me realize, like, every major headliner that we all grew up and loved, have always, were always once a local band.
Of course.
They were once a local band. So, like,
oh yeah, and another thing to that point, Dave, is that, there are so many talented people out there. There are a million talented musicians out there. It's just, of course, not everyone is going to get the same opportunities, and, look, that's life. These things happen, but I think, it sounds like there's also I mean, of course I know this, but, like, there's also very much a community aspect to it. Like, it becomes like part of the local culture. Like, you go there, you become sort of like part of the fabric of the local scene that you were in LA and some of the surrounding areas, I imagine.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, like, I just happened to notice the potential in a lot of bands. I can tell that they're really talented. I just don't often see where they're able to showcase their stuff as much, into a world outside of California,
Sure.
because it's like, the music industry, like, as you know yourself, it's constantly changing. And like, and I realize, like, like, I feel like, the minute I started realizing every show I've gone to, I just realized, like, you never know, like, the next band can be your favorite band. So that's why I always try to make a habit to come to shows, like, at the time doors open, to see every band that plays, because sometimes I never know if I actually like the band I'm seeing, even though despite not knowing who the hell the band is, I don't know if I'm going to actually appreciate them enough to where I want to keep following them and seeing them, So it's like, it was like a domino effect of that. And
And it's cool that you're making yourself available and you're making yourself receptive to giving people those chances. And I feel like that's a rare thing, especially as we get older. But it's a cool thing that, guys like yourself are still willing to go out there and seek these things out. And yeah, that's a great thing. That's a great attitude to have as well.
yeah, I mean, like, back then, like, I used to, before Uber and Lyfts, I would, like, ride my bike pretty much everywhere, from show to show, town to town, whether it be 5 miles, 15 miles, 60 miles, or,
wow,
whatever amount. Yeah. Like, I would travel pretty far.
That's dedication.
Like, Southern, like, California is a pretty big state. So there's a lot of towns out here,
Oh yeah. I'll bet.
So yeah, I think I pretty much, for the most part, I've been pretty much all over Southern California. I think I'm sure I'm probably missing maybe one or two things, but that's just because the bands I probably know of haven't been out there yet. But for the most part, I've been pretty much everywhere in Southern California. And this is coming from someone who's never had the need for, like, I'll put it this way. I think I've been told by a close friend of mine, shout out to my friend Nathan Young.
All right.
Yeah, so he's made this quote that I feel like it's true. I've traveled around more times around town on a bus or public transit in general than what most people do on a car.
Well, there you go. That's saying quite a bit.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I just want to see every band do good, even if whether if it's a band I like or not. I just want to see every local band do well and hope for the best, and just kind of, and I give credit where it's due, and, like, give, like, if occasionally I'll give, like, constructive criticism on some things. Nothing bad, of course. It's just, little nitpicks here and there. Yeah. And it's in a weird way, I kind of study them a little bit to kind of get an idea of their background and what they're all about too, because that's what I did. That's what I did with the bands I grew up with. Even the bands I didn't listen to, I was always studying them, looking them up, looking at all sorts of different information, whether it be online or through reading books, just kind of just get an idea of what every band is about. So I kind of have to learn my own way in finding out about these local bands, like, I think, so I think it's just a matter of just kind of being a decent person, and just don't like ask, like, what time the headliner goes on. Just go when it's open, and then check out all the other bands. Like, I know that sometimes we have our off nights where we got to work early the next day, and, like, whatever other, we got families to look after, whatever reasons we want to have and excuses we want to have in the book. But it's like one of those things, like, you know, if you really want the scene to thrive, you know, you kind of got to do your part. And that's kind of
Sure.
where I'm at.
Yeah, of course. I mean, plus, like you said, you make yourself known for being this guy who goes to all these shows and you're doing all this traveling, and that's how you kind of build relationships and you build rapport with that. And obviously, and this is a perfect segue into all the crazy outfits and the makeup, and obviously, you have a distinct appearance. You got the long dreadlocks and everything else, along with the war paint and the outfits. When did that come about? Because I know what it's inspired by. Obviously, your love of wrestling and like the Hardy Boys and Ultimate Warrior and Sting and characters like that larger than life sense. When did you make the decision that, okay, I'm not only am I going to go to these shows, I'm really going to make myself stand out and really do it up like that? Like, how did that all come about?
That's a good question. You know what? It's crazy that what started before I even started the idea of going out on doing war paint for bands. I think that whole thing, I was just doing. At first, I just started doing it, just painting whatever I was doing, for pool tournaments. That's a fun fact. I originally started it from when I was playing in pool tournaments,
Really?
to get my game face on. It's kind of like how with football players, when they get ready for the big,
Okay.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, they do the things under their eyes. So I didn't even know all that. So are you a pretty good pool player? Like you do that a lot? You're in tournaments?
I was doing, yeah, I've been playing pool since I was 14. I haven't
Nice.
been playing as much lately, but like at the time I was really consistent with it. So like I would play in tournaments and at this little bar called Little Joy in Echo Park,
Hmm.
where I used to live, because I used to live near there. So, which is close to the downtown part of Los Angeles, for
Okay.
anybody that doesn't know. Um, and you know, even some people would kind of would get trip out, and then some people think, oh, that's cool. Like, like I just get like some mixed weird reactions. So I don't know what it was. I think I was just trying something different, and I felt like,
Yeah,
you know,
you were doing that to kind of psych yourself up because it was the pool
yeah.
tournament and it was just kind of something that just happened organically. So you decided to. So that's where you got the idea to like, okay, maybe I'll start going to some shows, do this, and then but do it in a way that kind of pays tribute to the bands that you're there
What
to
le-
see.
what led to that was, at the time the bar had closed down, and um I think, I couldn't go there anymore, obviously. But I think what led to that was the start of it. I think was when a couple friends of mine bought me, they bought they bought tickets to go see System of a Down at the Forum back in 2011. It was back in 2011, I
Hmm.
remember. And I don't know what it was that, like, it's because everything I do is really it's based on a free spirit kind of thing. It's very free spirited kind of thing.
Right,
So
right.
like obviously I'm not a religious person, but I can be sometimes a little spiritual. So it's
Okay.
just one of those, like, go with the flow kind of things that I think there was like a random thing that happened where I had realized that, like, a friend of mine who bought the tickets, we were roommates at the time, and he had a partner at the time who passed away like a couple of years before that.
Hmm.
One of his favorite bands was System of a Down.
Okay.
And so I thought, so when I went into it, I think I thought of doing the initial. It just kind of came at me out of the blue. I think it happened during a conversation we were having, and I thought in my mind, like, why not I try practicing doing um why not I try practicing doing the paint, for the show, just to kind of, psych myself up kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I just did, their abbreviation, SOAD, and
Right.
then I had his and not only did I, you know, did not only did I did a band paint, but it was I also paid tribute to his his partner that passed.
Right.
So by
Yeah.
having his name initials as well.
That's cool.
So so it was like one of those things where, you know, my friend who bought the tickets, who's also my roommate, he was asking me like why do you have your face painted? And I was like, I don't know. I just I felt, just at the time, I didn't wasn't because I had it wasn't because I had to. It was just because, something in me just said to just do it,
No,
and
I
I did.
mean, it's like you said, you're a bit of a free spirit. You have that creative side, that artistic nature in you. So that was just how it came out. So
Hmm.
that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
that was my very first. That was my very first of doing that. And then I thought, then I did some different stuff that was just. I mean, if you saw pictures of it, you'd probably think, "Oh, this is terrible."
Well, I
When I
mean,
look, I look at,
but that's how you learn, and that's how you get better at doing whatever it is you're doing. So,
yeah, when
like
I
you
look
said, it
back
was
at
early
that,
on. So,
yeah, when I look back at that, and when I look at the stuff I do now, I'm like, the stuff I do now is way better than the stuff I did then.
of
You know, like,
course, yeah.
so it was just an interesting transition. I think because I was going to all these different shows, I decided to just continue doing it because I wanted to be more consistent and practice more to get the hang of it. And then, so I ended up just deciding to do it every single show I was going to, at least at the time. Things are different now, obviously, but at the time, every show I was attending, I would just I would just pretty much I would go with the flow of that and just do everything, just whatever whatever came in mind, because everything is always based on a theme.
Hmm.
And that day, with the System show, that was based on the theme. It was the theme of, obviously, System was playing, and I was paying tribute to a friend of mine's partner. So it was like that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
I think, and there was another show I was going to. I don't remember what it was. I think it was Creed, actually. That were what I did was, on that one, um what I did was try to kind of emulate their album cover for what are
Hmm.
their, I don't remember what it was, as far as the coloring
Yeah.
oriented. I mean, of course it wasn't my favorite, but it was cool to that, needless to say, it was cool to get a reaction from the guys at the end when they saw me
Right.
with it. They noticed me. And I think the minute that they noticed what I was doing or what I had on, I think that's probably where I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm doing something right, because people are starting to fucking see me and just I don't think I'm cussing here, but it's just when at the time, I was thinking about it, why are they staring? Why? Did I do something you know, that was it that cool and different that I'm getting all these different
I
reactions
mean, I
and
think it's a unique thing, and especially if you're known for being a guy who goes to all these shows, and and you got it such a distinct look like that, then yeah, people are going to take notice, and of course, thus began the legend of Warrior Dave.
yeah. No, it was just really cool thing, that I got to experience, people's joy based on my own enjoyment. It's kind of in that sort of way. It was just it's a vibe thing. So, but back to what I was saying about things being based on a theme. Sometimes I'll base it on, I'll base the colors on to match what I'm wearing. Sometimes I'll base it on like what my mood and feeling is at the time. Sometimes I'll base it on like what holiday season is it? Like for example, like let's say, it's like near Christmas, I'll do something that's Christmas oriented.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or if I'm doing something that's near New Year's, as you've seen before, I'll do the New Year thing. Or I'll do like, or if I'm like doing something that's like, doing tributes for friends of mine or other celebrities who I admire or something like that, or close people I know that's like, that's passed away. Sometimes I'll pay tributes to them if I feel the time is right and it's necessary for me to do so.
Well, of course. So, I mean, yeah, it could be whatever you want. And yeah, I mean, I could definitely imagine how these bands would appreciate someone doing something like that for them. I know if I were playing a show with my band and I saw someone like do something cool like that, especially, based on something that I helped create, like that'd be amazing to see. Like that would be such a cool thing. So yeah, man, like I could definitely see how something like that might happen. But shifting gears into what you're doing now at the Whisky, because I know you had put on shows before, you had promoted shows, and now you are like officially working for the Whisky A Go Go. Tell me a little bit about that and what they have you doing there.
I just started 4 months ago, exactly today.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, 4 months ago today. But like I was saying earlier, you learn a lot of things in 4 months, and this is always the number one question I get asked. Like ever since I started working there, like how is it? Are you enjoying it? Everybody's cool, this and that. And it's like, it's like any other job. You deal with different personalities and and the ins and outs, pros and cons to like everything else. I feel like with this experience for me, it's definitely, I feel like it's more pros than cons for sure.
Right.
But yeah, in this case, like what I do there, for those who don't know, like I'm a booking office assistant. Also, yeah. So basically one of the talent booking assistants there. So I help book pretty much like most of the local artists in the scene or whoever that is willing to, play shows there.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and anything outside of that, like if it's like a national act that want to get on the show, usually it's out of my jurisdiction. So like, but
Sure.
I'll like make, but I get, it's cool that I get asked about like from the head bookers, like what my opinions on or what I think of this band or that band, said headliner, like national act, whoever, that if we think we should have them play over here or whatnot, So it's nice to get different. It's nice to get asked, about
like that's
my opinion, because it makes me feel valued,
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's a really important thing to have. You're sort of like the go-to guy when it comes for like lower level bands trying to get into one of the most famous rock clubs in the world. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely something for sure. But like though sometimes like, I'm not gonna mention band names, but
yeah, of course.
There was a national act, that I've got asked about if I know who they were, if I would be interested, if I think, if I would think they would do well here. I told them like, hey, I know who they are. I think they're a good band. I've seen them live once or twice, and they have a really good following, and I can only say so much with my own opinion. So
Yeah.
it's up to them if they really ultimately want to book them. So it's like one of those things.
Sure.
But it's cool that, like I was saying earlier, it's cool to get asked to do that. But for the most part, I just book mainly just help the local bands get in shows. It's a little bit of a controversial subject as far as pay to play is concerned, because I know it's a very
Mm-hmm.
polarizing thing.
Mm-hmm.
So a
Yeah,
lot
I was going to ask about how much of that goes on at a place like the Whisky, because I had heard that it does quite a bit. I don't know if that's still the case, or what you can and can't elaborate on, but yeah, no, go ahead. I know you were kind of getting to that.
Yeah, it's very kind of yeah, it's a I mean, it shouldn't be polarizing, but it is in some way, shape, or form. But I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just because I think from I've heard stories of how some bands get screwed over and this and that. But
Yeah.
but without going too much into it, I think the safest thing I can say is yeah, sometimes sometimes some bands are for it, and sometimes bands are not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just more the way I look at it personally, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm neutral with it, but I think, it's more of an opportunity
Mm.
than anything for bands to want to play at the club,
Right.
based on certain situations. But it's just, I think it's just it's more of you're paying for the experience
Yeah.
in playing these kind of gigs, you know.
Sure.
So so depending on the show, you know, like every I know there's probably some bands that probably would say, that there's not, that it's this price and nothing else. I'm like, no, that's not the case. It often depends on the night and the show and the time slots for
Yeah.
each show, because every event is different, so you can't really compare. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, as far as my stance on the pay to play thing, I'm not a fan of it. I try to avoid it as much as I can. However, I understand the reality of the situation, and that's how a lot of the business operates. Whether we like it or not, that's how a lot of lower level bands get onto like big festivals, and they get onto bigger shows, or that's just how it goes. And
yeah,
it's, it's one of those things, whether or not I like it or you like it or anyone else does, unfortunately, that's how a lot of the business runs. And, sometimes I think how I feel, sometimes sometimes I feel like, I wish people behind the pay to play systems would be a little more transparent about as to what it is, because sometimes they frame it as like, oh well, you have to sell this many tickets, and like if you can't sell that many tickets, well, there must be something wrong with you, or maybe your band's not good enough, and that's not always the case. I wish they would just come out and say it, like, hey, if you pay us this much, then yeah, you'll get on the show,
yeah,
rather than try to frame it as, oh well, your band is small time or they're not good enough. That's just my personal opinion on it. You don't have to say, you don't have to, confirm or deny that either way. That's just kind of my take on it.
and I can understand that. It's a good, interesting take, for sure. I think it's just like I said, I'm pretty I can understand both sides, of the
Yeah.
story. So that's why I kind of don't lean on one or the other. But I think it's just more at the end of the day, the bands, it's an investment, and it is a
Hmm.
business.
Yeah.
So for the I don't know about other venues, but the Whisky, for instance, they've been around as a venue for almost 60 years. It'll
Yeah.
be 60 years going on 2024. That's when it'll be officially 60 years. So, um, it's, I mean, there's been, in the time that venue has been around, many other venues have come and gone.
Of course.
In that time. So I feel like regardless if whatever they're doing something right if they've been around at the business for almost that many amount of years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's
absolutely.
Like, yeah, it's like I can't, like I said, I can't talk shit about it, but at the same time, it's like I get it, you know, because it's like there's a lot that goes into it, you know, that some people genuinely don't know, and there's because there's a lot of factors that goes into these places, you know, and I feel like without the pay to play system, even though like sure it may be a little bit outdated these days, but it's it's been around for years, so why should these days be any different than it was then? You know, aside from the industry changing so much. Like, if you think about it, even the festivals, like the festivals that's going on, like the Louder Than Lives and the Aftershocks and the Welcome to Rockvilles, I wouldn't be surprised if there are local bands that are playing those gigs that have to do buy-ons for that.
I mean, I know for a fact that is the case at many times. I know, like, there's the Blue Ridge Festival in Virginia, for example. Many friends of mine have played on that, and I mean, they haven't been able to tell me exactly how much it is to get on those, maybe because of contracts or agreements or whatever. But like, yeah, it's like they're definitely paying out of their own pocket to get there. And look, I don't begrudge them for it. I mean, you do what you got to do to get your way in there. But it's
every band has their own responsible. Exactly. Every band has their own responsibility for their own decisions that they make for their brand.
Absolutely, yeah. And I don't think there's, if the band is willing to do something like that, and like, yeah, more power to them. I definitely don't blame anyone for going that route.
And this may, like, and I love every band to death, but like they're usually, and I think here's the thing, like, from my understanding too, usually when I don't, it's gonna sound like I'm talking shit, but
no, it's fine.
Usually, so 9 times out of 10, usually the general consensus reason of like bands that refuse to do pay to play are usually bands that really don't really bring anybody.
Right.
Regardless if they're good or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, usually 9 times out of 10, that's usually one of the cases.
Absolutely. And look, I know in my career I'm definitely guilty of that. Like, it's tough. I've struggled my entire career with trying to get, like, I guess a particular draw for bands that I've been in. And that's just the reality of the situation is, I'm just being honest about it, that like, yeah, that's something I've always struggled with. So maybe, maybe that is a part of why I don't enjoy, I don't, particularly care for the paying to play, is, if I can help it. But,
yeah. And like,
but I mean, that's just me. I'm being honest about it. I'm not trying to, make myself sound bigger than I am. It's just the truth of it.
Believe me, I know a couple bands that are that way too, so it's all good. And I respect your opinion. I agree with a lot of the stuff you're saying too, and I get it. That's why, like, I'm not for it or against it. It's just, it at the end of the day, it is a business. If you can hang with it, cool. If not,
I think it's a matter of, like, like you said, it's an investment and it's making a business decision. And I try to just be very, personally, I just try to be very careful about where I make an investment, and it, like, outweigh the benefits versus the cost of it, and just try to make decisions based on that.
Yeah. Like, it's definitely an investment for sure. And and you know, and on that lighter note, like I actually make the time and effort to ask like different bands that I've booked, in the last 4 months at the Whisky, and saying what their take is on, you know, on, private time, on my own personal time, ask them what their take is on the system. And some of them are the same way. Some of them are not for it, but they do it anyway because, some of them I know they're not for it, but they do it anyway just for the sake of putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
And like seeing it as an opportunity for an open door, because you never know if, like any of the, like if they're playing, for example, a direct support slot for the headliner,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you get new fans. If their fans are staying for the headliner, that's why everybody's willing to play later time slots, because a lot of bands are because a lot of people are willing to check out, the bands, or a lot more people attend these shows.
Yeah.
So that's why they have the option to what slots they can pick and choose. And I think, and then the ones that are like, that do it in general, like they're okay with it, is because they, figuratively speaking, they put their money where their mouth is.
Mm-hmm.
So at least to their understanding and why they do it, like they're okay with doing it. The ones that are like, they're genuinely all about it, they tell me that because they know that they're confident enough that they can sell X, Y, and Z amount of tickets. And so they just keep on doing it, for whatever the case may be. There's a lot that goes into it, like
absolutely
more than what we're talking about in this conversation. But
absolutely, and like I said, I don't begrudge anyone for making the decisions they do. I mean, I have all the respect in the world for bands that can, that do have that kind of draw and that are able to, like, really get it done, and really connect with that many people on a regular basis. I've been trying to figure it out for over 15 years and I still haven't been able to crack it, but like, more power to those people who do. Like, that's amazing. So that's how I look at it.
And I don't have anything against I don't have anything against bands that do and bands that don't. I just try to look at it from both perspectives and kind of see the big picture as a whole for myself. And then I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Okay, that makes sense, So yeah, like it's just definitely interesting to know all this stuff. Like I've always like known about it even before I started working here. Like, like it's just more, I just learned about how the system works a lot more as I'm in the office than I was before. Cause like sometimes we'll give like generous offers, if like, especially if there's bands that are consistently playing there and playing there and playing there to enough to where we already know who the hell they are, kind of thing. Sometimes we'll cut deals, and this, that, and the other,
Absolutely.
Because there are many bands who from back in the day, that are huge now, that was a part of the pay to play system.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Being like who Nita Strauss is, right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned this a lot more. She actually used to do the pay to play system when she first started.
I don't doubt it.
Way before she is where she is now. Like before Alice Cooper, before the Iron Maidens,
Mm-hmm.
like, she played in smaller bands, and, she she even gave the owner and one of the other bookers a shout out when she had performed there a little over a month ago on stage. She gave them the shout out saying, thanking them for giving her the start at just the age of 15. She was only 15 years old when she started doing shows at the Whisky.
I don't doubt it. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, and that's not a knock on Nia, of course. She's super talented, but like, there are so many people who, that's how they get their foot in the door, and
yeah,
it's just
I want to say Deftones and Korn also did pay to play at one point, and
I don't doubt it. Like you said, I mean, it is a business, and there are only so many spots available, and that's how a lot of people get noticed. Is that yes, you have to be good, but you also have to be in the right place at the right time, and be able to put the right resources into what you're doing, and like I don't have a problem with that. Sometimes I just wish that was a little more clearly communicated.
Yeah, no, I agree. It could be a little bit less vague and more like, transparent and straight to the point,
Yeah.
For sure. Like, and I've heard perspectives too, like how like the business model can be a little outdated,
Maybe. Yeah.
At least in 2021, But
yeah, I mean maybe that remains to be seen. But I will tell you this, Dave. I am glad that someone like yourself is in that sort of position, because you are doing this for the right reasons, and I can tell for as long as I've known you, you are a genuine fan of this sort of thing, and you have a very generous, caring spirit about you, and you like to give people chances, and I think that's a very rare thing in this business, and I really applaud you for everything that you do, and I wish you nothing but continued success in this, because I think the music business definitely needs more people like yourself in it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. I do my best, I try.
Very cool, man.
I think.
Well, anyways,
what's that?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, as we wrap up here, where can I don't know if you have anything on social media that you want to promote, as far as how people can get in touch with you as far as bookings, or because I know you're also involved with a radio show, the local band Smokeout. I don't know if I don't know how heavily you're involved with that, but if you have anything that you'd like to promote before we close up here, please go for it.
Local band Smokeout. So my friend BG runs local band Smokeout. So if anybody wants their music heard, stream, become a supporter of the channel, you can just go to facebook.com/localbandsmokeout. I think they have their own, it has its own YouTube page, and you can also, if anybody wants to get skip the wait, there is a wait skip option. So if anybody wants to skip the wait, they just because there's already so many episodes being viewed by so many bands that are requesting to be reviewed. So they get a lot of requests. So if you want to skip the wait, there's you just message the page and they'll give you all the details. And but yeah, I don't run that channel, but I'm kind of one of the moderators of it. So I kind of just help share stuff and, spread the word and engage and get people into it, kind of thing. And, as well as myself here and there. So,
Awesome.
And then just kind of present ideas here and there. But my main page is, I actually have I have a YouTube page on my own. People can follow, called Brave Warriorz with the Z Experience, which I kind of just gradually started sometime in the summer. Basically I just do little, post videos of like edited videos of, you know, doing time lapse videos along with like a performance of a band that's playing, song
Nice.
music, stuff like that. That's pretty cool. So if anybody wants to follow and subscribe in that channel, it's
Very
Brave
cool, man. Yeah, check
Warriorz.
out Brave Warriorz on YouTube. I'll be posting all your links in the description here. Don't worry about it. But yeah, man, this has been so awesome. This has been a long time
Yeah.
coming. Warrior Dave, God bless you, brother. Thank you for doing everything you do, and I'm really glad to have you on my show.
Yeah. If anyone wants to follow me on Facebook and like Dave WD or Instagram, same thing, Brave Warriors Experience. So that's another thing if people want to keep in touch with me about stuff. And Jack, if there's anybody in your town that's interested in playing anything in California, like, you can have them hit me up as well.
Very cool, very cool. Hopefully one of these days I'll get out there. So I mean, that's sort of this is sort of a pipe dream, on my end. But you never know. But I do have a lot of friends of mine who do actively tour out there and who you've met before, like we mentioned earlier. So you never know. But yeah, at Brave Warriors Experience, Warriors with a Z. Check out my man Dave. Dave, thank you again for coming on here and doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I want to give a shout out too, because we've talked earlier about um, meeting people on social media, but never in real life
Hmm.
earlier. There was a friend of mine named Sharon Crystal who I've known from the Creed page as well, and like she actually recently passed away, like a couple
Oh,
weeks.
okay. I'm sorry to
Like,
hear that.
yeah. So like, everybody's just pouring tributes out and, playing Creed music while
Sure.
like hearing, hearing about that. So, I don't know.
Sharon Crystal, is who you said her name was?
Yeah.
All right. Well, rest in peace, Sharon Crystal. Obviously condolences to her and her family and friends. So that's yeah, no, rest in peace.
Just wanted to put that out there.
Very cool. Very cool, man.
All right.
Well, Dave,
Thank you, Jack, for having me on the show. It's pretty
any
awesome of you. And
anytime, my friend. Thank you, and keep up the good work.
all
All right.
right. Likewise.
Thanks once again to David Gonzalez, aka Warrior Dave. The super fan turned promoter, turned booker. Quite a story that this guy has. He's become sort of a folk hero in the Los Angeles local rock scene. So it's really good to see him get that job at the Whisky A Go Go, and just he's just a genuinely good person, and I like to see good things happen to good people. And so I'm really happy for my friend to be in the position that he's in, and I wish nothing but the best for him. It's interesting that we got on to the topic of pay to play, and I feel like that could be its own separate podcast because I know that's a very for those that don't know, that's a bit of a hot button issue when it comes to bands, specifically original bands, as far as the economics of what it takes to kind of do what we do, and why, what some people may or may not know about that. So maybe that might be a future, podcast, for discussion. But, I wasn't really expecting to get into that with Dave, but in hindsight, I probably should have expected it, considering where he works and what he does now. But I know Dave is a unique cat, and has a really interesting story, and I'm really proud of how far he's come, and I thought this was a good opportunity for him to tell his story and to introduce himself to those of you who listening who might not know who he is. Like I said, I think he's a good guy, and I'm glad to see he's working for the Whiskey. So the Whiskey is definitely better off for having a guy like Dave there working for him. So. Thanks again to Dave for coming on the show. Now, I did want to catch up with you guys and say that there's been a lot that's been happening lately as far as in my world, with Vertebreaker. We finally dropped our record, our EP. It's called Everything Before Now. Those of you who have been listening to this with any regularity know that this has been something that had been in the works for a while. I believe we started tracking it back in December of 2015. Obviously, the members who were part of the band at the time have come and gone, but this was something that was very special to me, and I'm glad I got the opportunity to get it mixed and get it finished. And I'm very proud of these 6 songs. Whatever else happens with the band after this, I'm glad I at least got this done because this was a big set of unfinished business. And I want to thank my good friend Justin Cully, who's a former bandmate of mine years ago in a band called Impatient Nation. But he's a fantastic producer and engineer, and thankfully he helped me finish this record as far as getting everything mixed and in the post production process. I want to thank him and his partner Greg LeCompte for over at Dark Matter Recording in St. Petersburg for finishing it. I want to thank Ryan, Rod, Greg, and Jarrett for everything they did. Being in the band for as many years as they did, and this is as much their record as it is mine. They played on it, they co-wrote it with me, and they did fantastic on it. And I hope I hope they enjoy what the record ended up being. But it is available everywhere on streaming. It's it's on Spotify, Amazon MP3, wherever you get your music. You can find Everything Before Now by Vertebraker. It's a really great documentation about. It's a really great document about where the band was from 2015 through 2019. So I'm glad that we finally got this out. Those are 6 songs that I really like, and I'm hoping that that the band can get into the studio by the end of 2022. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but I figure if I put that out there in the universe, then maybe that might help it become a reality. So as of now, that's our goal. Hopefully we find it, and I guess if I'm wrong, check back with me in a year, and we'll see what happens. But that being said, Vertebraker does have a few upcoming shows as of right now. On Saturday, January 8th, we will be playing the Rubik's Cafe in Melbourne, Florida for the first time. Never played at the Rubik's Cafe. It's a relatively small venue from what I understand, but it sounds like a pretty cool place. We're excited to be there along with the bands Purely Red, Fleshweld, and Hollowed Hearse. So I think we'll be headlining that show, but Saturday, January 8th at 7 p.m. At Rubik's Cafe in Melbourne, Florida. And then we'll be back in the Brevard County area as well later in February. On Saturday, February 19th, we will be at Winfields in Satellite Beach. We will be opening up for The Fifth, and we'll be playing with another band called Offensive. The Fifth, I believe, features a guy named Roy Cathy, who is the lead singer of a band called Cold Sweat. He is the lead singer of The Fifth now. I'm not sure exactly where The Fifth are from. I believe they might be California guys. I'm not sure, but they will be headlining it. That is being brought to you by Blind Anxiety Entertainment, who are good friends of ours. We've known James and all the guys there for a long time. So definitely check that out. BlindAnxietyEntertainment.com will be selling tickets in advance for the show, so definitely check that out for more information. And then on Tuesday, February 22nd, we will be live we will be part of a very special web show called Live at Willie's House. These guys have been this has been a web show that's been around in Orlando for quite a few years now. They do a really great job of showcasing local talent, and we are finally going to be a guest of theirs on Tuesday, February 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That will be on their Facebook page, facebook.com/live at Willie's House. I'll be leaving a link in the description. Make sure you mark your calendar for that, because especially if you've never seen us live, we will be playing a few songs and we'll be doing an interview segment, and and we're really looking forward to that. So that'll be live on Facebook. So wherever you are, you'll be able to see us, and I'm sure there'll be a replay as well. And then finally, on Saturday, March 19th, we just announced this show. We will be going back to Orlando Brewing, which is a really cool outdoor venue. It's a stage, right near the brewery, Orlando Brewing specifically. And we had played there about a year ago, and we had a great time. We really enjoyed playing at that venue. This time, we will be there with a really great band called Detora. Yeah, Detora is a great band from Orlando. Those guys are really great musicians, great dudes. They're killing it. And Mature Musical Pictures, a band that I know quite a bit about. And I used to play with Mature Musical Pictures for quite a few months there. They will be joining us on that show as well. Mature Musical Pictures is a band. They're based in Fort Myers, so it's been a while since they've played in the Orlando area, but they're incredible. Those guys are such great friends of mine, so I'm very excited to be playing a show with them. And that is it for this episode of the Phoenix Report. As always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at JackXConnor, on Instagram at JackXConnor as well. Like me on Facebook, facebook.com/JackConnorMusic. Feel free to check out the band, Vertebreaker. We're on Facebook.com/VertebreakerBand, on Twitter at VertebreakerFL, on Instagram at Vertebreaker. And check out our link tree. That'll have all the links to all our social media and also where you can find our new record, as well as